Howdy, howdy. Dealing with Huntsville Guns. A lot of stuff to cover in this video, so we're going to kind of breeze through it pretty quickly. Stick with me. Wanted to bring the Savage 1907 project full circle. So this firearm is now ready to go. For those of you who haven't seen the videos, a subscriber reached out and was able to send this gun in to me for some repair work. After the initial diagnosis and disassembly, determined that there were a lot of parts that needed to be replaced. Somebody had done some things they shouldn't have to the gun, and so it needed to be brought back current. And the parts that were here were not repairable parts, not easily repairable, financially viable to repair all of them. And so customer and I had a conversation, and he was actually able to find a parts set on Gunbroker. And so he was able to find essentially an entire part set minus one or two pieces, and got that shipped to me, and I now have the firearm put back together and ready to go. I will put some time-lapse footage in here somewhere, maybe split screen that, of just kind of the assembly. These guns, it's been my experience, I haven't worked on a ton of these, but every slide that I have seen, right here at the rear of the slide where the hammer hits the back, hammer striker assembly, whatever you want to call it, hits the back of the frame or the back of the slide. There's always a little bit of metal kind of rolled over, and that needed to be cleaned up before I could assemble it. But now, say that the breech plug comes out of there, and this one has been test fired and is ready to go. So the kit he ordered had a replacement slide, a replacement barrel, recoil spring. It actually included the breech plug, a replacement ejector, and the ejector spring that actually holds the slide release, and a new trigger assembly. Actually, it included a grip, but it was actually the one grip that he already had, so this is still missing a right-hand side grip. If any of you happen to have one of those laying around that matches that Savage style, I'm sure that he would be interested in that. But like I said, complete functional firearm. I took it out and test fired it this morning. I may put some footage in here, nothing super show-stopping, but I had some 32. This is 71 grain FMJ American Eagle. It's probably a 20-year-old box. But took it out back and shot it. It's actually fairly accurate. I had to put the sight, the front sight from his old slide onto the new slide because the one on the new slide was damaged and half of it was missing. But got that staked in place. And at, I I think 15 yards. I hit a 6-inch plate 5 out of 5 times. Pretty accurate for a 100-year-old firearm. But this one is ready to get boxed up and shipped back to his local dealer for him to pick up. Then I also am working on another pet project. I do a bunch on a couple of groups on Facebook, gunsmithing specific groups, we'll call it. And so people ask questions about a project they're working on or a firearm they have questions about. And people in the industry have the opportunity to answer some of those questions, point them in the right direction for reference material, parts replacement. I've had several customers ship me firearms through that venue. Don't put me in jail, Facebook. Fully licensed to do that. But there was a gentleman who asked a question about a Winchester Model 74, one of my favorite guns, very simple design with some complex features. And if you haven't figured it out, I'm a fan of the pre-1950s 22 long rifles. And so the Winchester Model 74 is a semi-auto tube-fed 22 long rifle, but they also made it in a 22 short. I believe original production started in 1939 with only a short version, and then pretty quickly followed up with a 22 long rifle. The date code on this barrel for this particular firearm is 1940, so a pretty old gun by most standards. This one, if memory serves me correct, had one of my local customers who owned this, and it was in somewhat rough shape and missing a few things, and he wanted to get out of it and into a functional gun, and I think I traded him a Model 60, Marlin Model 60, something of that nature, if memory serves me correctly. But I'm in this gun very affordably, and it wasn't missing a lot. It just needed to source a few parts. Kind of a brief history, said I went into production in 39, and if memory serves me correct, production stopped by 1955. And they only made something like 400,000 of these. There's not a huge volume of them. It's not the 1022 or the Marlin Model 60, Glenfield Marlin Model 60. And so parts availability kind of sucks for them. Primarily, one of the parts that is hardest to find is the one that fails the most, and that's the firing pin. And that's what this gentleman on Facebook was inquiring about where to source a firing pin. Numeric, from time to time, will have one or two of them. Depends on what they purchase and from whom. But for pretty consistently, they do not have one. Most of your major part suppliers online don't carry a lot of firing pins or some of the more hard to find parts for these. And so I told the gentleman that I owned one with a complete firing pin. And so I would do a couple of things. So I have dimensions that I am going to get drawn up in CAD and share with him. But also I have the ability to kind of reproduce what's in my gun. There used to be a company that all they made was firearms firing pins, aftermarket replacement firing pins. I don't think that they've been in business for 25 plus years, and I have not seen one of them on the shelf for a long time. So what I did was kind of make a template or a demo firing pin to see if it was practical. Conveniently, these are very common size wire. So the front half of the pin is 3/32, and then the back half is 7/32. I think it is large journal. But unfortunately, it is a two-part, now that I put it together, it is a two-part firing pin. It's the thin gauge of the wire and the features on it kind of dictate that it has to be made in two pieces. And that's where it fails, is at that joint. There's also a feature that should be on the top that keeps this aligned as it goes through the bolt body. And it's not an easy feature to replicate. I played around with the idea of a woodruff key or cross drilling and putting a pin in place, but it's a very thin feature. I think it's 0.050 if I'm not mistaken. Very, very thin feature. Not the easiest thing to replicate in the original fashion. It would have had two dies that pressed and raised a portion of steel. But there's some specific geometry on these that has to exist, and it has to be in alignment. I even went as far as shaping the front of this to match the one that I have. But unfortunately, I don't think it's financially feasible to make these in one or two pieces, or one or two item lots. I think somebody would have to get tooled up to make a bunch of them for it to really be financially worth it. And I just don't know that there's enough demand in the firearm platform to support that. Definitely not for me. My time is unfortunately better utilized in general gunsmithing. But with that being said, Facebook is a wonderful place sometimes when they allow you to play their game. There are always people who are looking for a part or looking for information. I actually have some reference material on this firearm. I probably have a terabyte hard drive full of gun reference material, schematics, hang tags, service manuals, factory owner's manuals, tons and tons. And I think I have the factory owner's manual for this, if I'm not mistaken, in that reference material. And so I'll push all that information that I have and kind of the schematic that I have for him to that customer. If he has somebody local to him with some free time and the tooling and availability, he theoretically could have somebody make him a replacement firing pin. But another one of those pet projects, super cool gun. I bought this one knowing that it needed parts, one of the cross pins, as well as the stock stud. Turns out that it's a very odd thread pitch. It's somewhere between 10-30 seconds and like an M6 diameter wise, and it's a 32 thread pitch. Not 10-30 seconds, 10-32. But so I'll eventually get around to putting that one back together. I might do a video on this gun. It wasn't in the best of shape when I took it as a trade. The stock is a little lackluster. It does have a lot of its original finish, but most of it is that dark plum brown color. And so it would, maybe a conservation video would be received well. I don't know. Finally, I had a video maybe a week ago about the Noble shotgun that came in. It was actually a Western field gun, but made by Noble. And several of you have reached out about more specifics on that platform. That Noble made a lot of shotguns for a lot of different brand names, house brand, store brand kind of thing. But they also ultimately sold the production rights and the tooling to Smith & Wesson. I think I alluded to that in that earlier video. And I own a Smith & Wesson 916. So this is a Noble design. I think it's the Noble Model 66 made by Smith & Wesson. This gun went into production right as Noble was going bankrupt. And so 1972, 73, this gun went into production. 3 versions. There's the 916, which was like the Sportsman. There's a long barrel, kind of a utility gun. The 916T, which is the takedown version. I've never owned one and I've never had one come through the door. I assume that they're relatively low in the production numbers. And then the 916A, which is what this barrel is, and this gun was originally. And that is the kind of the tactical version that was marketed towards law enforcement. If I have that reference material, I think I do have like an original sales brochure maybe from Smith & Wesson. I will drop that here or in the description down below. Drop a card with kind of that picture. But the number one question I got after that video, a bunch of you have emailed me, is about the barrel change on these. It's probably one of the easier shotguns to do a barrel change that doesn't use like an 870 or a 500 style barrel setup. So this receiver is threaded and the barrel is threaded into the receiver. Only about 10,000 of these, according to Wikipedia, are in existence in all of the variations. I know the 916 takedown had a bunch of issues like barrels rupturing based on the setup for the takedown. I've never had one in for work. But the little bit of research I've done on the platform is that they did not go over very well. But if you remove the magazine tube end cap, I will warn you, let me get in frame here, keep your thumb or your hand on top of this because the magazine spring is not held captive under this and it will launch the cap and the spring across the room if you allow it. So keep your thumb on the top. It's a very fine thread pitch. And so it's going to take me a while to get this off of here. Hold the spring, take the cap off. You can see that the inside of the cap is hollow and that really fine thread pitch there. We will remove the spring. I'm not aware of a magazine tube extension for these guns. I was clearly wrong. Here is a picture of the original owner's manual cover where it clearly lists the available options to include a magazine tube. But it would be very easy to accomplish one with some decent machining ability. Magazine follower is out, and then simply pull the magazine tube out. This is just a straight piece of tubing, nothing fancy. And then in this gun, because I've already had it apart, the barrel just unscrews. It's that simple. A gun, when I originally had this gun and it was incredibly rusty, a good friend of mine and I used to do kind of like picker style looking. We would go look at old farmhouses and things of that nature and find all the treasures in those. This particular gun was incredibly rusty. He found it at an old farmhouse that actually was a train station before it was a farmhouse from like the 1890s. Somebody had this gun, it was up in a barn rafter, and it was very, very pitted and rusty, and he gave it to me. He knew that these little projects like this are things that I find interesting, and so he basically just gave it to me. The barrel that was on it is incredibly pitted, and at the time, Numeric had replacement barrels, replacement magazine tubes, both the fore-end and the stock, and the magazine tube cap. I think I have less than $100 in all of the parts in the gun completely. But if you'll notice, the barrel, like I said, just threads into the receiver. This shoulder here is what sets the timing of the barrel. You want to make sure this is on the bottom. But now that the longer barrel is out, this very rusty original barrel that came in this gun, again, very fine thread pitch, so just be careful, don't cross thread this. This barrel simply just threads in. And then it'll get to that shoulder, and it would be torqued. But that's it. Magazine tube goes back in the front, like so. Make sure that when the tube goes in, that it doesn't sit on the front of the receiver, but actually goes into the receiver. I think it's unidirectional. So pretty straightforward, nothing fancy. Like I said, they're simply just threaded. Definitely something that a user could accomplish if they simply just took their time and understand that the barrel needs to be indexed properly and that the headspace needs to be checked before firing. This gun is chambered in 3-inch, so it'll run 2 3/4 and 3-inch shells. I've never seen one that was just 2 3/4. And this replacement barrel I got from Numeric is a, I want to say it's a modified choke, maybe? Not a full choke, but something. It does have a fixed choke in it. I just can't remember what the constriction is off the top of my head. Like I said, I ordered this a couple years ago. I've had this project kind of just tooling around. Super cheap guns, very affordable. Like I said, there are a bunch of them out there. Law enforcement bought into these pretty heavy as a cheaper alternative to like the Model 12s and things that were in existence at the time. What's the Stevens, the 320 maybe? Do you ever feel like you know something to be fact, and then you look at it again and you're like, nope, that was definitely the Stevens 520 I was talking about? No. Whatever the Stevens gun was, that there was also the Riot version of. Memory is escaping me at the moment. But to answer your question, the barrel change on one of these to go from an 18.5 to a 28 or a 28 to an 18.5 is very straightforward. Definitely something that a user, an intelligent, kind of studied DIY guy could accomplish, not rocket science. There we go, get that tightened back up. Like I said, direct copy. This one, you can see the finish on it was very, very bad shape, and so I just blasted it and parkerized it. But the bolt does tilt, so you see it come forward. Watch the rear of the bolt here. As it locks in, it tilts up, and that's what locks it into the top of the receiver. super simple. This gun is actually a little punishing to shoot. It's got some recoil to it. And so I normally stick to like 2 3/4, number 9s, number 8s, birdshot kind of thing. I've actually shot a bunch of dove with this gun right after I put it together. It happened to be dove season. But I hope that answers your questions, your curiosities. If you have any additional questions on this platform or anything else we've talked about, the easiest way to get a hold of me is huntsvilleguns.com. Up at the top of the page, there's a contact button. It would appear that after saying all of this, that about 60% of the people watching this video are not subscribed to the channel. And so I would encourage you, if you find this type of thing interesting, the business side of gunsmithing, the gunsmithing side of gunsmithing, the historical side of firearms, that kind of thing, consider subscribing. I try to have a pretty diverse channel and appease a lot of people. So thanks for hanging out. Hope you enjoyed it.